Welcome to day 10 of the Trump criminal trial afternoon review, where Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and I break down everything that happened in trial. Today, we are in week 3, day 10. Each day, we have a scorecard so you could all follow along on the big developments of what's taken place. Let's pull it up right now, and we'll go through all of the major events from today. Then, Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you. So on Trump trial day 10, it began with a second contempt hearing. Donald Trump's already been found in criminal contempt based on 9 separate violations of the gag order in a previous hearing. And today there were 4 additional violations subsequent to the prior hearing that were addressed. We'll talk about that. Keith Davidson, who was the lawyer for Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, continued to testify. Some bombshells, I thought, there. Karen, I want to get your take on everything that Keith Davidson testified to today. He concluded his testimony. Later on in the proceedings, Donald Trump's lawyer, Susan Nicholas, made a pretty bizarre request of the presiding judge over the case, Justice Merchan, and asked if Donald Trump would be permitted to post a series of articles. You know, Donald Trump has somebody who follows him with a portable printer around the trial. And then he takes the articles that he likes and he kind of like makes redactions on them. And then he likes to post them on his social media. So Trump's lawyer was asking Justice Merchan if Trump could post this. And the prosecutor's like, what an odd request to make. Like, what, you're asking for an advisory opinion about what Trump can and can't post. And Justice Merchan's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like, that's not what I do as a judge. Sorry. I think the gag order is pretty clear, that it's not ambiguous, and you just need to follow what the gag order says. It's pretty obvious what you can and can't do. Donald Trump made a bizarre post saying that he's not sleeping at the trial. He wanted that to be clear. I think we have that bizarre post where he says, here it is right here. He goes, contrary to the fake news media, I don't fall asleep during the crooked DA's witch hunt, especially not today. I simply close my beautiful blue eyes, sometimes intently. I think he meant intently, but he goes, listen intensely and take it all. He makes that caps in. A very, again, just bizarre statement from a malignant narcissist. How strange is that? Let's go back to our scorecard, though, of other developments that were happening in the trial today. A forensic analyst testified towards the end of today's proceedings, someone by the name of Douglas Dowse from the district attorney's office. And he just had to authenticate records because Trump and Trump's lawyers were not stipulating to this. And as Karen had previously reported here and explained, that's actually dragging out this trial much longer than it needs to be by having witnesses like Douglas Dowse up there. But one of the things that Dowse had to authenticate were the audio recordings of Trump and Michael Cohen. And on these audio recordings, Cohen said to Trump, this was back in 2016, I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set up the whole thing, how to set the whole thing up, referring to the shell company to make hush money payments. And then Trump said, let me know what's happening, okay? It's such bullshit. I think this goes away quickly. Cohen's response, big time. Cohen's response, I need to open up a company for the transfer for our friend David. And David Dennison was Trump's code name that was used for this enterprise, that was used on these settlement agreements, if you will, that were negotiated by Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal's lawyer, Keith Davidson, who talked about the settlement agreements, the provisions that Trump's side ultimately wanted, how these agreements came to be. Karen, let me toss it over to you to describe everything that you observed in court today.
Yeah, today was an interesting day because, as you said, they started out with this gag order hearing, and it's clear that the lawyers did their homework and did a much better job this time than they did last time. If you remember, the last time when the judge found that Donald Trump was in contempt of 9 out of the 10 posts beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a high standard that they found that the prosecution was able to prove. I think the defense was caught flat-footed. They weren't prepared when they were making arguments that, oh, he was just posting in response to other posts. When the judge said, show me which post, they couldn't respond to it. They didn't have an answer. They were making arguments that really were kind of ridiculous. And even the judge now famously said to Todd Blanche, you're losing credibility with the court. That's about the worst thing a judge can ever say to a lawyer. So today was they figured it out. And Todd Blanche is a really good lawyer with a great reputation, and he came much more prepared today. And I heard somewhere that they brought 500 exhibits that they wanted to put into court, or 500 pages of exhibits. It looks like they're appealing the gag order decision that came down earlier in the week, finding him in contempt, now providing the exhibits that they couldn't provide at the last hearing, saying these are the ones that they were in response to. They were also more prepared in today's order to show cause that talked about the 4 new violations, and we'll see. The judge is going to rule on those. It really looked like the ones involving the jury was the one that the judge was most concerned about, that Donald Trump really can't do it. And the ones involving Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, he was very clear about how, look, I'm not going to let the witnesses use the gag order as both a sword and a shield. So he's really kind of thinking about that. And so he's going to rule at some point whether it's a violation, but it really seems to have made a difference in Trump's behavior. He's modulating his behavior a lot. So, and I think that's going to be a factor that the judge is going to consider. And then we went back to the witness today, who was the lawyer for who negotiated the Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels settlements. And they finished the direct of him. The one thing that's come out in this trial is the sleazy underbelly of the world that Donald Trump frequented, right? Whether it's porn stars or Playboy models or the sleazy publication that the catch and kill checkbook journalism that David Pecker testified about. And today we saw the lawyer version of that, Keith Davidson, where he really was talking about he made at the time that he negotiated these deals. It was very much around the time of when he did this for a lot of celebrities. They talked about many of those celebrities. Hulk Hogan was mentioned. And I think Lindsay Lohan was mentioned. There were other people who were mentioned in the trial today that he negotiated settlements with people who, and the defense was I think did a decent job making him out to seeming like this is extortion. And even though it's not, this is what lawyers do. They negotiate these settlements, but look, they're going to call it extortion. And he kind of made the prosecution, I thought, did a really good job at showing kind of what this guy did, how he negotiated these things, how there was no market for them at one point, but then around the time of the election there was, how he dealt with Michael Cohen, who did the arrangements, how they used these fake names. Stormy Daniels' name was I forgot, Patty Petunia, something PP for plaintiff, and Daniel, whatever the name's, DD for defendant, and that's how he came up with the names. And the defendant's name was the name of someone on his high school hockey team or something. It's really, it's not the way we practice law, that's for sure. And then the cross-examination of him, I thought, was fairly effective. And it's looking like what the defense is that, look, this guy's a liar. He's, just really an extortionist, he's a liar, he's sleazy, and he used him to get information about Michael Cohen out too, that Michael Cohen's a liar and not a kind person, and really erratic and that sort of thing. So they used him to kind of make their points about that. But the strongest point, and I think where they're really going, is like, look, all these people are sleazy. Don't believe anything they say. And however, the one thing is you don't see Donald Trump's fingerprints anywhere. And that's kind of, because Donald Trump had other people doing his bidding. So that's where the defense seems to be going with all this, with their witnesses. It's like, let's show how these people are all terrible, and let's show how Trump was distant and didn't do anything, at least enough to create doubt in one juror's mind, because that's all they need to do. But the prosecution then, I think, did a good job on redirect, kind of rehabilitating him, which you're supposed, which is what they would do. So in the end, I thought he actually was a pretty good witness. And although the defense scored some points, I do think that it was actually a pretty good a good witness for the prosecution. It really just, again, sets the stage and corroborates. So far, we don't have anything contradicting each other. There's nothing I see that anyone is saying that's contradictory. If anything, they're building a story of the world that Donald Trump lived in, and that the circles he was in, the women the type of women he was attracted to, the types of lawyers he was attracted to, the types of people, publishers that he frequented, right, and got stories with. So this last witness, again, the fact that they didn't stipulate is shocking to me. I don't know why. And this last witness is someone who worked in a unit in the DA's office called HTAU. HTAU. I don't remember what it stands for. It's something technology unit, the high technology unit, something like that. It's a unit that actually I helped create with Cy Vance, and it's essentially it's like a lab that takes in electronic devices and has experts, like real experts. And that's one of the things you saw. They were cross-examining how this guy was an intel guy in Iraq doing, intelligence work. I mean, super smart, really brilliant people who know how to execute search warrants into cell phones and computers and all that kind of stuff. And they have all the latest equipment, and it's a really incredible law enforcement tool that the DA's office has at their disposal and utilizes, and that he executed a search warrant on 2 of Michael Cohen's cell phones, and they played some tapes, and one of them has Donald Trump's voice on it, and they're talking about the payment, and they referred to the fake name in the agreement, whatever it was, Daniel, David, whatever it is, that started with a D. And I think it's powerful evidence for the prosecution, that's for sure. And the prosecution is just going to bit by bit really tie Donald Trump to all of these transactions. I mean, the one thing that I think has been proven very clearly so far is that all of this had to do with the election. It had nothing to do with Melania or anything else like that, because the affairs happened, or the relationships or whatever happened almost 10 years prior to all of this. And at that point, there was no market for any of this information. And certainly David Pecker and Donald Trump were friends back then. They were friends even, and they engaged in this kind of doing favors for each other, journalism, back then too, but there was no market for these women. And he was already married to Melania. So if he was really worried about Melania and his family not finding out, why wouldn't he have bought those stories then? But he didn't. And so one thing they've done, I think, really well is tied this to the election and the timing of the election and the amount of money that they spent, et cetera. So that, as much as we thought that was going to be what the defense was and the weak point in the case, I think that's going to be one of the things that I think the jury is going to find. And Hope Hicks is going to testify, I believe. There's been some reporting on that, and I think she's going to talk about what all this meant around the time of the election if she testifies the way they think she's going to testify. But instead, I think their tactic is going to be Donald Trump didn't know. These were just sycophants who wanted a role in the administration. People were doing stuff for him. And by the way, if we cross lines, it doesn't matter. He'll pardon us. And so let's just do it. And I think that's what their defense seems to be shaping up into. And look, they really, the Keith Davidson today, it's some of his testimony made you cringe. You're like, this is why people hate lawyers. He talked about how he wouldn't call it hush money. He said, well, it's not hush money. It's consideration for a contract. It reminded me a little bit of I did not have sexual relations with that woman. I mean, it's like, come on, just, well, it was technically right. They didn't have an affair, whatever. Like, it's just, he was a little too cute by half. I didn't love that, but he is who he is, at least he was authentically himself. And again, that's what the prosecution will say. This is who these people, we didn't choose them. We would have chosen a bus full of nuns. We didn't choose them. These are the people who come with Donald Trump and the world that he lives in. So the witnesses that can tie Donald Trump to these transactions, I think, are going to be the ones that are most powerful, and it'll all be cleaned up in summation. So I think on balance, it was a good day, actually. And I think for the prosecution, I think this was a good witness. He certainly wasn't as good as Pecker, who was, I think, a total home run. I would say this guy was, a single or a double. For the prosecution. But that's how I would describe Davidson.
A single or a double, but then you get that audio recording, which the public may have heard, but the jury never heard that before, where you have everything that Cohen's previously said, everything that Pecker said, everything that Davidson said has been corroborated, whether it's with checks, documents, bank accounts, and here an audio recording where Cohen said, this is Cohen to Trump on an audio recording that the jury's heard after all this other testimony. I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up. Trump, let me know what's happening, okay? It's such bullshit. I think this goes away quickly. Cohen, big time. Cohen, I need to open up a company for the transfer for our friend David. And then Cohen opens up the company. We know about the Essential LLC or Essential Consulting LLC. We will later in this trial see that by Donald Trump to Michael Cohen grossed up to account for taxes for the exact amount of the payment that Cohen made to Stormy Daniels. So all of that is about to be connected, and everything Cohen said is going to be corroborated. Let me leave you with this, Karen. As Donald Trump was leaving the court today, he now gave an excuse why he's not going to testify at this trial. We had a bet. Let me be clear. Karen thought that Donald Trump was going to testify. She still may think he's going. I said, Karen, you may have started the forensic division. You may have been the number 2 at that office, sometimes serving as the acting Manhattan district. There ain't no way, nowhere that this guy is testifying. I wonder if you will change your view after seeing this video. Let's play it from moments ago.
Well, I'm not allowed to testify. I'm under a gag order. I guess, right? I can't even testify on that. No, we're going to be appealing the gag order. I'd love to answer that question. It's a very easy question, the easiest question so far. But I'm not allowed to testify because this judge, who's totally conflicted, has me under an unconstitutional gag order. Nobody's ever had that before. And we don't like it, and it's not fair. Other people are allowed to do whatever they want to us, and I'm not allowed as a presidential candidate, the leading candidate, the Republican Party nominee, and the one who's leading Biden by a lot. I'm not allowed to talk. There's never been any abuse like this before. This conflicted judge ought to get out of this case. He should not be having this case. He gives us nothing. It's such a rigged court. So I'm not allowed to testify because of an unconstitutional gag order. We're appealing the gag order, and let's see what happens. Thank you very much.
Now, Karen, of course, everything he just said is 100% false. He lies about everything. The gag order only prevents him from threatening or attacking witnesses, the family members of the judge or the district attorney's office, or making comments about the jury. He can testify. He can talk about Biden. He talks too much. He talks every day. He gave a rally in Wisconsin and Michigan. Karen, I got to start political beatdown in about 2 minutes, but I want to give you the last word after seeing that before we go to political beatdown. And everybody watching here, you will be transferred to the political beatdown live with Michael Cohen and myself. Karen, you get the final word.
Number one, the gag order only applies to outside of court statements. Of course, he can testify. He can say whatever he wants on the stand. So that's what the gag order is. The gag order has nothing to do with his testimony. So that is 100% lie. Of course, he can testify. Number two, I am starting to agree with you that I don't think he's going to testify, but I'll tell you why. Because under oath, he does not ever want to admit that he cheated on Melania with Karen McDougal or Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels, it's a one-shot deal, so maybe he can figure out how to deny that, although I'm sure that the prosecution has something up their sleeve to cross him with on that. But a 1-year relationship that they saw each other multiple times, he will have left some kind of a footprint somewhere that the prosecution will have gotten, whether it's a hotel record or something. They would have found something from back then, photographs, whatever. The fact that he would be crossed and it would be clear that he cheated on Melania when they had just gotten married and she was either pregnant or just given birth to their son. There is no way he's going to put himself through that. So that's going to be why I think he doesn't testify.
Well, we will see. Stay tuned. Everybody, thanks for watching our special edition continuing coverage here on Legal AF. Karen Friedman Agnifilo, your experience and insight here is second to none. I mean, look, you helped create the department where one of the witnesses who was testifying ended up being a part of that department. And so we can literally see the work that you did show up in these proceedings with a forensic chain of custody and seeing these incredibly qualified people from the district attorney's office authenticate records. So it's just so awesome to have you here. All right, I'm about to join Political Beatdown now with Michael Cohen. Karen Friedman Agnifilo and I will have a summary tomorrow morning of everything that you can expect in the proceedings tomorrow. So make sure you check in the morning for that. Karen Friedman Agnifilo and I will be back again tomorrow afternoon as well. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you, Karen, and to be with all of you watching this and following with us along. Thank you so much. And now it's time for Political Beatdown with me and Michael Cohen. Thanks for watching. Shout out Legal AFers. Shout out Midas Mighty.
Enough! Send it to the big house, not the White House. Get the new exclusive tees, mugs, and stickers right now at store.midastouch.com. That's store.midastouch.com.